Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 25th Annual Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame Induction Banquet. We thank all of you for being with us tonight, and we thank you for your continuing support of the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame. May I ask you at this point in time to please rise for the posting of our nation's colors by the Color Guard from the U.S. Army, Fort Benning, Georgia, and remain standing for the retiring of the colors as Kimotha Isel honors America with the singing of our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Right turn, march. Forward, march. Thank you. Please be seated. It's a great pleasure to introduce you to the class of 2020 modern and current era inductees. Each inductee will be escorted by a Columbus State University cheerleader. Our first inductee from Kendrick High School and the University of Georgia, class of 2020 inductee, Mr. Jim Baker. From Fairview High School in Cullman, Alabama, and St. Bernard College, class of 2020 inductee, Kinard Latham. From Brookstone and Columbus State University, class of 2020 inductee, Hugh Royer III. From South Girard High School and Ashland College, now Ashland University in Ashland, Ohio, class of 2020 inductee, Rob Spivery. From Columbus High School and the University of Georgia, class of 2020 inductee, George Whitton. If you will kindly refer to the program on the table before you, you'll note that we will begin very shortly with our invocation, followed by dinner. Following dinner, we'll recognize various notables in the audience, as well as past year inductees or their representatives, and then, of course, the highlight of the evening, the induction of the class of 2020. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Jimmy Elder, pastor of First Baptist Church, for our invocation. Dr. Elder.
He spoiled me last year with the cheerleaders. This year I don't have one, so anyway. This is always a treat, a pleasure for me. You know, God gives us abilities. He gives us all sorts of gifts, and how it's used is a credit to the person who is the steward of those gifts. And that's what this is about. We're celebrating the gifts that God has given, and we're celebrating the people who've used them so well. I'm so proud to be a part of an evening like this, and I also appreciate what Jim White does. Don't you want to thank Jim with me? Now, if you'll bow with me, let's thank the Lord for the blessing of the evening. Lord, I thank you for the gifts that you give to each individual, for the way that they then take it and use it as a stewardship in their own lives. And they touch others, they inspire so many of us in how to take something and to do something well with it. And so many lives are changed because of the example that's set. So as we celebrate these lives, as we enjoy a meal, as we enjoy the fellowship and the fun of an evening like this, help us to always be mindful that you're the giver of the good gifts. You're the giver of the food on the table, the fellowship with others, and the ability to live in this world. May each of us find our own gifts. May we use them to the full. And may we offer to you the honor and glory for the moment. Thank you for the food. Bless all of this. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Folks, we're going to pause for about 25 minutes, enjoy dinner, and then we'll reconvene and begin the program for the evening. Again, we welcome you to this special occasion, an occasion where we will honor the class of 2020, recognizing these gentlemen who have contributed to the world of sports. However, before we honor the class of 2020, we want to recognize a number of special supporters and guests in our audience. May I begin first by saying we're grateful to WRBL TV3, Rex Castilla, Jack Patterson for their reviews of our class of 2020 sports accomplishments. As well, we thank Dave Platter, WTVM Channel 9, and Scott Carpenter, WLTZ, for his coverage. And I want to ask all of you to give a special round of applause and thank you to Mr. Phil Scoggins. Phil is not only my right-hand man, he is my left-hand man, along with Robbie Ross and the gentleman from Columbus Tape and Video. As you will see very shortly, they are the ones who put together the video productions that you'll enjoy on each of our inductees very shortly. So would you join me in just giving these fellows a round of applause? Some 26 years ago, a group of local sports enthusiasts gathered to consider how they might recognize those who have contributed to sports from the Chattahoochee Valley. After a series of meetings, the 501c3 not-for-profit corporation known as the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame came into existence. That organization has been fluent, has been significant, and has been successful thanks to a number of Hall of Fame committee members as well as board members. If you're a member of that group, the selection committee that is, as well as the board of directors, would you please stand and be recognized? Thanks to all of you for jobs well done. We're pleased to have a number of past year inductees or inductee representatives with us tonight. Will all of you who are past year inductees kindly stand and be recognized? Thank you very much for your continuing support. Now it's time to honor our class of 2020 inductees. We'll begin the evening focusing on the pre-modern era being those years from 1877 to 1948. Unfortunately, we don't have those inductees with us tonight to be honored in person, but we do have videos, short videos of their accomplishments. So please turn your attention to the screen.
John C. Corn Griffin came to Fort Benning as a soldier in 1929, becoming a favorite with post-boxing fans and those in the Columbus, Georgia and Florida areas. He was a boxer who climbed to the top of the Army service ranks in the light heavyweight division. Under the management of Charles J. Harvey, Griffin scored impressive wins over Adolph Waiter, Jim Maloney, Steve Hamas, and Nate Brown, who went 10 rounds against the great Joe Louis. His biggest bout was a loss on June 14, 1934 against Jim Braddock, who became heavyweight champion. Griffin joined the Columbus Police Department in 1936, serving in the patrol and traffic divisions, becoming particularly well known as he walked a beat on Lower Broadway until he retired in January of 1963. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is proud to induct John C. Corn Griffin.
From the pre-modern era, our next inductee is a gentleman who raced horse racing, that is, at the old Columbus racetrack on Victory Drive. I don't want to ask those of you to remember by holding your hands up the old Columbus racetrack on Victory Drive, because I don't think there's anybody here that will remember that. But our next inductee, we're pleased to have an excellent video on his accomplishments.
As a young boy, George Odom began horse racing at the old Columbus racetrack. His father was a horse trainer. At the age of 14, Odom was in New York winning races with horses owned by America's affluent. When Odom turned 18, he earned $20,000 while astride various thoroughbreds. Odom won 527 out of 3,063 starts, one of those victories being the Belmont Stakes in 1904, one of racing's Triple Crown events. At first a jockey and then a trainer, Odom became a 108-pound legend in the racing world, wearing the colors of some of the leading stables of the time. After outgrowing his tack, he became a trainer, guiding winners at the country's major races, including the Belmont Stakes in 1939, becoming one of only 2 men to win the Belmont Stakes both as a rider and a trainer. He saddled 44 winners as a trainer, by the way. Odom was inducted into the National Racing Museum's Hall of Fame in its first induction class in 1955. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is proud to induct George Odom.
From the pre-modern era, our next inductee is Mr. Enos Slaughter. Please direct your attention to the screen.
Enos Slaughter joined the Columbus Redbirds in 1936. The team happened to win the South Atlantic League Championship that year. Following a slow start, Slaughter batted .325, driving in 118 runs and hitting a league-leading 20 triples while playing in every inning of that 151-game season. Slaughter had 10 seasons in which he batted .300 or better. His highest batting average was .336 in 1949. He was named Player of the Year by The Sporting News. Slaughter had a Major League career batting average of .300 with 2,382 RBIs and 169 home runs. He was inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in 1985, selected by the Veterans Committee. Tonight, the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is proud to induct Enos Slaughter.
Now it's time to honor our class of 2020 from the modern and current era. That time frame covering the period from 1950 through the current date. Our first inductee from the modern and current era was an all-by-city selection in 1970 and 71 and a member of Kendrick High School's Region Championship team in 1970. He was the recipient of the Golden Helmet Award given to the most valuable player at Kendrick High School in 1971 and selected State All-Star in 1971 as well. He was selected one of the top 50 linemen in the country by Letterman magazine, awarded a scholarship to the University of Georgia, captain of the 1972 Georgia freshman team, and varsity letterman in 1973, 74, and 75. He was a participant in the Peach Bowl, Tangerine Bowl, and Cotton Bowl. He was a member of Coach Irk Russell's original Junkyard Dogs, and he received the Victors Club Award as Outstanding Senior. Please direct your attention to the screen.
Among Jim Baker's many accomplishments on the gridiron, one that certainly stands out is being an original member of Georgia's Junkyard Dog defense. But before he headed to Athens, Baker was a one-man wrecking machine on both offense and defense for the Kendrick Cherokees. His junior and senior years, he was named first team All-by-City. Jim's senior year, he was the recipient of the Golden Helmet Award as the Cherokees' MVP. He was also a finalist on Parade Magazine's list of All-Americans and represented Kendrick on the All-State football team. Baker headed to the University of Georgia in the fall of 1972, where he was captain of the Bulldogs freshman squad. He went on to become a 3-year varsity letterman at Georgia as a defensive lineman. In 1974, his junior year in Athens, he earned the distinction of becoming an original member of Irk Russell's vaunted junkyard dog defense.
Jim Baker does the job this time on Greg Horn, a 1-yard loss by number 42.
His senior year, he was named to the elite Canine Corps as one of Georgia's top team leaders. That honor was underscored when he also received the Victors Club Award given by head coach Vince Dooley to his outstanding seniors. During Baker's tenure with the Bulldogs, he made 3 bowl trips to the 1973 Peach Bowl, the 1974 Tangerine Bowl, and the 1975 Cotton Bowl. After getting his degree in industrial arts at Georgia, Jim went to work for Georgia Crown Distributing, working his way from the warehouse to senior vice president. As a member of the board of directors for the Georgia Beer Wholesalers Association, he initiated a scholarship program, which has given out over $200,000 to 50 student athletes over the last 20 years. Baker has also served on the athletic board for Columbus State University for 6 years. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is proud to induct Jim Baker.
Ladies and gentlemen, class of 2020 Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame inductee, Jim Baker. Take a look at the camera right there. I'll put it in your chair. Okay. The podium's yours.
I appreciate it. Got my little cheat sheet here. Listen, I want to say good evening to all of you here tonight. I want to say thank you, Jim White and the Chattahoochee Sports Hall of Fame Committee. I want to thank my family. I want to thank my friends. I want to thank my lettermen for coming here. And I want to thank all of you out here tonight for coming here to honor the new recipients of the Hall of Fame. I am very proud and honored to be part of the Hall of Fame group here in Columbus, Georgia. Jim White gave me a call. Well, I'll do this. Let me tell you this one here. I want to do the same thing that Henry VIII told his many wives. I won't be keeping you long. Well, Jim White gave me a call and to let me know that I was selected to come on to the Hall of Fame here. That evening, I got a phone call from my son. He says, Jim, do you realize that you're been selected to go on the Hall of Fame here in Columbus? I thanked him for the comments and appreciate it. My lovely bride, Becky Baker, been married to her for 43 years. She's the mother of our 3 children. We have 8 grandchildren. She saw it in the Ledger Inquirer. She says, Jim, look at this. You've been honored to get into the Hall of Fame here in Columbus. I'm excited. I'm excited for you. She said, Jim, I need to help you write a speech. I said, Becky Baker, I've given presentations in front of a lot of people in my life. I can handle this. Don't worry about it. She said, Jim, I've got a master's in English, and there's nobody in the United States that destroys the English language better than you. Well, let's see how bad I kill the English language. I moved here in Columbus. I'm not originally from Columbus. I moved here in 1963. I'm part of a military family. I lived in Germany for 6 years. When I came to Columbus, I spoke fluent German. In Germany, when you went to the schools over, they taught you German in every level. Plus, my mother was Czechoslovakian, and we spoke German at our house. Let me tell you one thing. My southern Georgia is better than my German. I went to 3 elementary schools here in Columbus, Georgia. I was bused to 1. I went to 1 junior high school and 2 high schools. I was bused to 1 high school. You know, a lot of people say, well, Jim, that is bad, going to all that many schools and being bused. It wasn't bad for Jim Baker, because I met so many people here in Columbus by going to these different schools that I have friends all over Columbus. I know people from South Lumpkin, North Columbus, East Columbus, Midtown. A lot of these people that I knew growing up, they're still my friends. I remember playing football, knowing a lot of the people on the other team because of why going to so many of the schools here in Columbus got me associated with all these people. Kendrick High School. I was at Kendrick High School. We have a new coach that came into Kendrick High School from Cairo, Georgia. If you don't know where Cairo is, it's a small town south of here. Coach came in, put a message out. Anybody that wants to play football, come to the gymnasium. I wanted to play football. I was already playing football, but this is a brand new coach. So we go in there, I sit down, and he's got a blackboard right here. And he looks at us, and he said, I am your new coach. And you see this blackboard, there's a piece of white surgical tape about that big. He said, this is the only amount of tape I'm going to use on you. And if you get hurt, I'm not coming on the field to get you off the field. Right then I said, Jim Baker, you better not get hurt. You know, this coach was here for 3 years. Our third year, we went into the AAA region. We beat every school our first year in the AAA region. Every school in Columbus, Phoenix City, Macon, Warner Robins. We beat them all. We were playing for the sub-region here in Columbus, Georgia. Memorial Stadium, 23,000 people. Can you imagine Memorial Stadium? They haven't seen that many people since Georgia and Auburn played. 23,000 people, and we were playing a school called Valdosta. Well, Kendrick High School, we had 40 players. Valdosta had an army of players. We played them at halftime. Kendrick was 19-0. We were in pretty good shape. Third quarter, we were still in good shape. The game ended, we came in second. But I'm going to tell you, that spring, that same coach called us back into the gymnasium. And he told us, he said, I've enjoyed coaching. You guys have been great. And we had a lot of great players on that team. And he said, but I'm going into another career. I'm going to get into the insurance business. Well, that coach was Art Williams, and he started A.L. Williams Insurance Company. And I promise you, he did real well. He was very successful. He wrote me a letter congratulating me for being honored in the Hall of Fame here in Columbus. He said he was proud. He said he followed my career, said a lot of personal things. And at the end of the letter, he says, Jim, I love you. This man, this person, put me on the right track. He got a lot of major universities to come scout me and offer me these scholarships. I went to the University of Georgia. It was the right place for Jim Baker. I met a lot of people from all over the state, all over the country. I played in 3 bowl games, played for 2 great coaches, Vince Dooley and Irk Russell. I loved Irk Russell so much, I named my second son after him. Irk Russell was one of a kind. Used to go up to tailgates. I had 3 children. We'd go to Athens on the weekend. And a lot of my friends said, Jim, why don't you come to more games? I said, well, the reason is I've got 3 children. And on Friday and Saturday nights in Columbus, we've got sports, we got other activities. And I told those people, I said, guys, I'd love to be here. Georgia football will always be here. But my children's sports and activities will go away one day. Matt Guest, my good buddy, he's the president of the Letterman's Club and a good friend of mine. He got with me and says, Jim, we've got to do something. We've got to do something for the Letterman. So we put together a tailgate. Let's start off with a tailgate. Our very first tailgate was about 25 years ago at the Coliseum. If you're familiar with Georgia, the big Coliseum right in the middle of the campus, we had everything. We had our cookers. We had the beverage machines. We had tables. We had tents. We had chairs. That tailgate, we had 125 Letterman and families come to that tailgate. I told Mac Guest, I said, Mac, build it and they will come. Well, fast forward. We now have a tailgate, the Letterman. We're in the graveyard, the Oconee Hill graveyard, right across from the stadium. We're in the graveyard tailgating. It holds about 120 Letterman parking spots for us. But we have a tailgate once a year for all the Lettermen and their families. We have fed about 1,200 people at one time. And trust me, when we cook, we have some cookers. We cook 400 pounds of butts, 300 pounds of ribs and chicken and so forth. We have it. But what's a good thing about it? Everybody's working this tailgate are Letterman. The cooks are Letterman. I'm one of the cooks. Friday and Saturday, we're cooking. The servers are all Letterman. The cleanup people are Letterman. The bartenders, yes, we have bartenders, are Letterman. And we call those the Dog Bar Rangers. They do a great job. Coach Dooley has been to several of our tailgates. And this year we had the governor and his wife come to the tailgate. We could accommodate 600 people under a roof at one time to eat, with the tables, the tents, and all that. We can do all that. I told Mac, build it, and they will come. And we're still building it. The whole Coney Hill Cemetery is right across the street from the stadium. Here's the graveyard. That wall is the stadium. That's how close we are. Our tailgates on game day, Letterman, their family and friends, it's a great gathering. But also in this tailgate, we have a plot in the graveyard for Letterman and their families to be buried. You come into the graveyard, cross the bridge, and you go on the top of the hill. There's the Letterman's graveyard. You got a granite wall around the entrance. You got the hedges that originally came from Sanford Stadium. You got a big Georgia bell there. You got a rendition of the stadium right there when you pull up. You can get out of your car and go in and see some of your friends. Yes, my bride, Becky Baker, we have real estate in that graveyard. We will be buried there. They asked me, friends of mine asked me, he says, Jim, why be buried in Athens, Georgia? Why not here? Which I told him, I said, listen, my parents are buried at Park Hill, and shame on me, I seldomly go up there. Becky's parents are buried in Park Hill. She goes about 3 times a year to take flowers. But if I'm in Athens, all my children's fraternity and sorority sisters and friends would come. All my friends would be there. You know, on game day, they could come into the cemetery and go into the back and come in there and have a cold one with us. But I promise you, I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready. In fact, I am buried, my plots, Becky's and our plots, are right next to a buddy of mine named Craig Hertwig. We played together. Great friend of mine from Macon, Georgia, passed away several years ago. I said, I want to be buried with my buddy. I was telling my friend Jim McPicken about it. He turned around and got him a plot right next to Becky and me. He said, I want to be there. It sounds like it's going to be a fun place to be. You know. Also, one thing I was going to say this is, I was at a dinner party one night, and a good friend of mine came up to me and says, Jim, would you play football again after all your operations? I said, D.D. Upchurch, let me tell you this. I've got 2 artificial knees. I got 2 artificial hips. I've had 3 back operations, 2 artificial discs, 2 rods, and several screws. I said, that all wasn't football. I said, my mother had 2 artificial knees. She never broke through the line and tackled the quarterback. My friend Jim McPicken's girlfriend has 2 artificial hips. She's never intercepted a pass and run it back for a touchdown. You know, I'm not going to blame these surgeries all on football. I'm going to say hard work and a lot of fun. Hard work and a lot of fun. And I am just glad that they got doctors that can put you back together like they can now. I want to end this with telling you it's an honor to be here. I have been to 3 Hall of Fame celebrations. I've been here a couple times to see some of my friends be inducted. I went to Macon, Georgia for the Georgia Hall of Fame, saw some of my friends being inducted in that Hall of Fame. I got a letter from a good friend of mine, Frank Thomas. He invited Becky Baker and me to come to the Hall of Fame, the Baseball Hall of Fame, in Cooperstown, New York. I accepted. Becky Baker and I went to Cooperstown. If you've never been there, this is a sight to see. The ceremony is in a big pasture. You got a podium up there, and you got about 400 chairs out in front of the podium. Becky and I were right on about the 13th row. You look up on the podium, and there's all these great Hall of Famer baseball players up there. And you look out in this big old pasture, and there's 50,000 people there, 50,000. And you've got concession stands, and you've got lawn chairs and blankets. These people are out there celebrating the new Hall of Fame. It was very impressive. Trust me, I was impressed with what they had. But ladies and gentlemen, this is more impressive to me. They had 50,000 up there. This is what impresses me. You have the hearts and the fire of 100,000 people. Thank you. I love you.
Thank you, and congratulations, Jim Baker, as well as the Baker family. Our next inductee was basketball and baseball team manager, 4 years at St. Bernard College. He was a basketball referee for 30 years, including college, and 15 years in Georgia high school state tournaments. He was a baseball umpire for 25 years, including college and 8 Georgia high school state tournaments. He was a softball umpire for 51 years, including college, pre-Olympic, international, and 10 Georgia high school state tournaments. And he was the state of Georgia umpire-in-chief for 27 years and was the umpire-in-chief of 30 national tournaments. If you'll please direct your attention to the screen.
Kinard Latham has spent a lifetime making sure athletes play by the rules, and nobody knows them better than Kinard. He was an athlete himself at Fairview High School in Cullman, Alabama, a 2-year letterman in basketball. Then it was on to St. Bernard College, also in Cullman, where Latham earned a 4-year scholarship as manager of the varsity basketball and baseball teams. Kinard joined the Army Reserves in 1959 and was active duty for a year during the Berlin crisis. Latham moved to Columbus in 1963 and began a 35-year career with the Muskogee County School District. He was a 6th grade teacher and coach, leading his teams to city championships multiple times. Kinard also joined the Columbus Officials Association, and that launched a career in sports officiating that spanned 5 decades. He was a basketball referee for 30 years, a baseball umpire for 25, and a softball umpire for 51 years. He served as umpire-in-chief for the state of Georgia for 27 years, working 30 national tournaments. In 1987, Latham was inducted as a charter member into the Georgia Amateur Softball Association's Hall of Fame. During the 1996 Summer Olympics, Kinard was honored to be the coordinator of the bat and ball girls for the Olympic softball games held in Columbus. In 2001, Latham's dedication to officiating was rewarded by his induction into the National Softball Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City. In 2019, he was one of only 3 men in the U.S. to receive special recognition for attending all national umpire-in-chief clinics that started back in 1971. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is proud to induct Kinard Latham.
Ladies and gentlemen, 2020 Hall of Fame inductee, Kinard Latham. Take a look at the camera.
Thank all of you. I thought for sure they would be playing the Three Blind Mice when I came up here on it. First of all, let me congratulate the people up here on this stage. It's a great honor for me to be up here with them. I want to introduce my family. They're very small. I don't have many, but here they are. My wife, my lovely wife of 54 years, Jackie Latham. All right? Our oldest son is Jeff and his wife, Jeanette. They're right here. Their two children is William and Lucille. William's a sophomore at University of Kansas, the Jayhawks. Lucille is a senior at Bentonville High School, where she was voted one of the two most valuable players to the lacrosse state championship in Bentonville. Lucille, raise your hand. My youngest son, John, and Wendy are here. My sister-in-law, Darlene Bryan, from West Palm Beach, Florida. Melanie Jordan from Nogosoga, Alabama. Camilla Webb is from Grove Hill, Alabama. Stancil, my brother, my younger brother. We were born, he and I were born in a little 3-room house way down the road in a kind of just off the road. The mail didn't even come there. All right? He was the youngest of us, but I was always jealous because, you know, tenant farmers lived out way out on the farm, and we had to pick cotton. You know, he taught me that I never wanted to go into the cotton picking business because he could pick more cotton than I could. So on that, I want to thank all of them for coming and being with us tonight. I want to thank the Army. A lot of people, well, I didn't like the Army. Well, I did. I love the Army because that's where I met my wife, right down here at the Old City Auditorium. Came to a basketball game and met her. So all of that, I want to thank all my friends for being here and that. All right, and would like to mention 2 friends, and they're out there somewhere. Mr. Eli Barber, who is the president of the Columbus Umpires Association. And then this next guy that I want you to introduce to you. Can you think of where you was when you were 20 years old? Think of what you were doing. It's hard for me to think of yesterday, but think 20 years, when you were 20 years old, what you were doing. This next guy, Mr. Arwood Bagotas. Arwood, stand up. Let us see you. Where's Arwood at? Way back over there. Let me tell you what he was doing. When he was 20 years old, he was a member of the Army Air Corps. That was before they developed the Air Force. Now, what he did was flew 17 missions in Europe. And I asked him one day, I said, Arwood, I said, what in the world, how did you feel about flying all of those missions? Arwood said, well, I was 20 years old, said it's just another thing to do that day. And they flew, they got holes shot in their airplane. Yeah. Let me say this. I want to congratulate the city of Columbus for the facilities that we have here for softball. A lot of people don't realize that, but we have the best facilities that you can find anywhere. The USA Softball, which is the governing body of all softball, they voted South Common as the most, the convenient, not the convenient, but the best place to play softball in the United States. And that's a contribute to the Columbus people here in Columbus. I'm 82 years old now, and my parents worked hard. Like I said, we grew up on a farm, tenant farmers. And a lot of you young people don't know what tenant farmers are sharecroppers. But anyway, we did. I want to pay special to but Coach Charles Richards at St. Bernard and Father Bruno Massotti was at St. Bernard. They were the two that gave me the opportunity to go to school. They said, Father Bruno told me one day, said, I don't care, said, I'm going to see to it that you graduate from college. And he did. I graduated, believe it or not. Then we have the late Al Bishop, who was the commissioner for the state of Georgia. He appointed me as the umpire-in-chief for the state of Georgia back in 1970. And the guy that took his place was Bobby Simpson from Tifton. And he was one that really promoted the youth softball. The late Merle Butler, which is, he was the national umpire-in-chief. He signed me to a lot of tournaments that I went and supervised and was the umpire-in-chief for. Now, the late Max Wills was a good friend of mine, and he and I traveled all over the country, and his wife Melinda's here tonight. Thank you for coming, Melinda. My name's always been Tiny from the very beginning. I was small. I don't know, I weighed very little. But my mother told my wife that I was a fat little fella, and I've always been fat. So that's been my name. I didn't have much playing ability. Because of my size, I didn't get to play many sports. So that's how I got into refereeing and umpiring. Umpiring was always good for me. I went to the umpire school down in West Palm Beach, Florida, back in the 60s. And at the school, I got to meet a lady that became the first umpire-in-chief, female umpire-in-chief. After we got through school, she went to the New York Penn League. I went to the Florida State League. And believe it or not, in the Florida State League, that was the year that Pete Rose started. I got to officiate some of his games that he played in the Rookie League. He didn't stay long, but he went on up. Also, something that you look back over your career and you think, what in the world did I contribute, or who did I work with, and all of that. Bobby Howard, most of you know him. I worked his ball games when he was in high school. After he got out of high school, he went to college. I worked his games when he was in college, over at Columbus College. He played over there. So I went to those games, played in those. I didn't play, umpire. And then along came a guy, and I think you mentioned him, a guy by the name of Frank Thomas. He played down there at Peach League, had the opportunity to call his games there and also in high school. And then y'all know Frank, he went on and he worked for me in the summer and did an excellent job. He's a good fella. I had the opportunity to work some of the best women's softball in the world. I worked the pre-Olympic games with all the Olympic teams that came into Columbus. They played in Columbus. We played at LaGrange and played at some other places all over. So they're the best. And let me throw a little something in here. Mary with the Sports Council is here tonight. And if you want to see some good softball, I mean the best in the world, is not any better, then you need to come down to South Commons on April the 3rd and see the Olympic team come and play. They're going to play Columbus College and they're going to play Kennesaw. So if you want to see the best softball in the world, come down there. You'll enjoy it on it. I had a lot of things happen to me, and I had a lot of, over the years, I've called thousands and thousands of games. You know, I had a lot of goals in my life that I wanted to meet. Some of them I met, some of them I didn't. When I was in high school, they said I was a good basketball player in high school, But let me tell you what my goal was. I think I told a fellow the other day, my goal was that I could jump and touch the bottom of the net. It took me about 4 years before I could ever get high enough to get up and touch the bottom of the net. Yeah, let me tell you one other thing that happened to me along the way. Mr. Spivery made me think of it. I was calling a softball game. They just called it first base. Well, this big fella about the size of you, Mr. Spivery, a little bigger, he said, you're not right. I said, well, I think I am. So he said, no, you're going to change. I said, I'm not going to change. Umpire's decision final. But anyway, he told me, he said, look here. I had to look up like that. See him. He said, look here. He said, I'm going to, after the ball game, take care of you. I brushed up there and I said, well, where are you going to be? He said, I'm going to be right over there. Well, when the ball game was over, I looked over there. He was still over there. I went out the other gate. Tony. He was waiting on me. So I said, I can't do that. Tony, yeah. But, the good Lord's been good to me. And he's put me through all of this. I got to call thousands of ball games. And every one of them have been good. Some of them are better than others. But I got through them. And let me tell you this. If you want to talk about softball, baseball, and things that happen, just come over to Burger King on every day during the week at 9 o'clock. You can come this week and wait 3 weeks later and come, and you're caught up. Because the same thing's over and over on it. So we do that. I'm 82 years old. I had open heart surgery. I go to dialysis 3 days a week. And, I don't enjoy it, but I'm looking forward to the opening season, which is going to start pretty soon. Mary's got a big lineup at South Commons. So, at 82, I'm going to be down there volunteering again, just like I've been for a long time. And I want to thank every one of my friends for coming tonight. I got a lot of them out there. Some of them I got to speak to earlier, and I'll speak to the rest of them when it's over. I want to say it's a great honor for me. Like to sit on the screen, I was inducted into the Softball Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City in 2001. And it was a great honor for me. But listen, the best honor that I have had is coming from my friends, people that I work with, people that I play with, people that I've called out, people that I've thrown out, and they've come back and said, you might have been right. Well, I might have been. But thank you for inducting me tonight, and, just thank the good Lord that I've had a good life, and I'm looking forward to more. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations to Kinard Latham and the Latham family as well. Our next inductee was the NCAA Division II individual champion in 1985 while playing with Columbus State University. He was Georgia State Amateur Champion in 1986, Southeastern Amateur Champion in 1986 as well, Western Amateur Champion in 1987, four-time winner on the Korn Ferry Tour, twice in 1993 and twice in 1995, and was a member of the PGA Tour 1996 to 1998. Please direct your attention to the screen.
It's safe to say Hugh Royer III is a chip off the old block, a talented athlete who followed in his dad's footsteps pursuing golf as a profession. Hugh's high school years were a true indicator of just how much talent he had. He made the All-Bi-City golf team all 4 years at Brookstone. His senior year, the Cougars won the state championship. Hugh was the individual state champion his junior and senior year. He received a scholarship to Mississippi State University, where he played for 2 years before transferring to Columbus State University, where his dad was golf coach. And Hugh made his dad proud, being named NCAA Division II Player of the Year and a first-team All-American in 1985 and 86. The summer following his graduation from CSU, Hugh captured the Georgia State Amateur Championship. 2 weeks later, he returned to Columbus, where he turned in a dominating performance to win the Southeastern Amateur. In 1987, Royer underwent open-heart surgery, but that only served to fuel his passion to compete. That same year, he captured the Azalea Amateur Invitational in Charleston. Then came a victory that was most special. Hugh won the Western Amateur. His dad had won the Western Open back in 1970. To this day, they are still the only father-son combination to win both tournaments, a feat preserved in glass cases that contain both championship medals. 1987 was also the year Hugh turned pro. He spent 6 years on the South African Tour, winning once with several runner-up finishes. Then it was on to the Nike Tour, where Hugh claimed 4 tournament victories. He gained his PGA Tour card in 1995, and during 3 years on the PGA Tour, he notched 4 top 10 finishes. Hugh competed on the Nationwide Tour in 1999 and 2000 before retiring. That same year, he was inducted into the Columbus State University Athletic Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is proud to induct Hugh Royer III.
Ladies and gentlemen, 2020 Hall of Fame inductee, Hugh Royer III. Take a look at the camera there. Put this on your paper.
Whew. Thank you. If I get a little emotional, I will apologize now. 2 years ago, in 2018, I didn't know if I'd be alive on this earth, much less be standing here in front of you. I was diagnosed with basal cell carcinoma. It had run down a nerve in my face. And when they finally got it, which they told me they would, and it was 4 surgeries in 3.5 weeks, it was a centimeter from my brain. Skin cancer is real. I don't care if you're a Caucasian individual, if you're an African American, if you're Spanish, I don't care. Check yourselves. If there's something you don't like, something that looks wrong, get it checked. Get it checked by somebody that knows what they're doing and that will do what they need to do. I did that. I chased it for 1.5 years. I had doctors tell me it was a staph infection. With no culture. I had doctors tell me it was nerve aggravation from the Oakley sunglasses I wore. If you know Oakley sunglasses, they weigh nothing. Trust yourself, trust your bodies, and take care of yourself. Please don't ever say to me, well, it's basal cell. It's easily treatable. You're wrong. Basal cell, melanoma, and squamous. If they're not caught early, they can all 3 kill you. I'm proof of that right now. I lost my nose. My face has been rebuilt. This is the greatest honor I could ever ask for in my life. I was born and raised in this town. Everything I did came out of Columbus, Georgia. I want to thank Steve Travis for getting my resume in front of this committee and making this possible. If it wasn't for him, I don't know if this would have happened. I want to thank the committee for allowing me to join my father and be a part of this Hall of Fame. I'd like to congratulate everyone up here on this stage for their honor. They've earned it. The stories are phenomenal. It was people like Bill Plager, Wright Waddell, that got me to where I was playing golf. I knew the first time I won the Bi-City Amateur and I beat Bill Plager that I had a chance to play golf. Not the fact that I was Hugh Royer Jr.'s son. I earned it because I beat the best in Columbus, Georgia. That's what got me to where I was. I grew up a municipal junior golfer, a muni kid. I wasn't a country club kid. I got to play the Columbus Country Club once a year. It was a junior Southeastern, or it was a Southeastern later on. I got to play Green Island because I went to school at Brookstone down the street, thanks to Coach Joe Sparks. And Jay, it was great to see you tonight. I have to thank my family, my wife and my daughter, who sat in the hospital room with me and looked at me the way I looked. If you could see pictures, it was pretty frightening. And to have your 16-year-old daughter lay in the bed with you and to have blood off your face and say, "Mom, you sit over there, I got this." My other children who supported me, who couldn't be here tonight, Leanne, my stepdaughter, Sydney and Bray, my other two children. I'm a lucky man. I have the greatest family in the world. I have two good friends here tonight that I would like to recognize that have always been there for me. One of them is Joy Rozier and his fiancee, Emily. Thank you so much for being here. I have to thank Todd Rader and his wife, Stephanie. Todd's retired Sergeant, E7, Fort Benning. We knew each other when I lived here after I retired, and we've been best friends ever since. We haven't seen each other in how many years? A long time. We had dinner last night at Chef Lee's, and it was like we never missed a beat. To say you have friends like that means you're one lucky person in this life. Thank you very much for coming. You know, you grow up in Columbus, Georgia. This is a golf town. There's a lot of great talent that has been born and raised and come out of this town. I grew up at Bull Creek. My dad was a head pro. I was a pro's kid. I was the one that caught the flag. When you grow up a legend's son, you're going to catch it. And I learned to handle it. And the funny part is, you know, you grow up and you play high school golf, you play junior golf, and the people that I grew up playing golf with were amazing. The talent that I had to play with every single day of my life. And then you think of the man that taught us. He knew more about golf than I will ever know. He tried to teach us. We tried to listen. But like our children, we think we know more than our parents. The flack that flew at that golf course from Mike Harrelson, Dan Kirkland, Mike Spitzmiller, James Hutchinson, that worked for my father. We caught flack for days. Learning to play with one club out of the pro shop to the first green at Bull Creek. Having to achieve a certain score with that club. Now, if you've ever been to Bull Creek, you think about in front of my dad's office, out those two doors, past the counter, all the glass, and you've got to get to number one in 9 shots. There was more grief given than you can ever imagine in a lifetime. And my dad was one of the best at sarcasm that's ever hit this planet. But the best part about it was, being the pros kid, I had to try to be the best there was. Well, that was kind of hard with who I grew up with. The likes of Ricky Smallridge, Wright Waddell, Johnny Hammond, Mike Miller, Brad Braxton, Thad Estes, my cousin Trey Dykes, Mike Thornell, Bobby Carr, the lovely Jenny Holder, who was there when my father passed away, that helped us pull the funeral off, Joe Sanders, and many, many more. My dad put a lot of kids in college, and thank God I was one of them. And with him playing the Western Open, winning the Western Open, playing the PGA Tour, he taught me what it took, how hard it took to work and practice to get to the PGA Tour. And it was not an easy road. You learn to play the game of golf from my father. You didn't learn just how to swing a golf club. He put more kids in college than anybody's ever come out of this town. And for that, that's one thing that makes me extremely proud. But the one thing that I will laugh about the rest of my life, and Madden, I'm sorry that you didn't grow up with us out there, because some of the things that Ricky and Wright, Mike Miller and Johnny Hammond taught me, you just can't fathom it. A thunderstorm rolls into Bull Creek. We have to come in. We're sitting in the clubhouse. My dad says, all right, y'all get out of here. Go pick the driving range. Take the golf carts, take the hand pickers, and go pick it. Well, the driving range at Bull Creek, it kind of goes downhill. Well, we're about there sliding carts, and we're sliding them off the greens, and we're having a blast. We've got gas carts at Bull Creek. They always have had them. They always will. And then somebody happens to slide one through the 150-yard marker, Brad Braxton. And then you see all these kids out there trying to put this thing back together. Now, that was comical. You got a bunch of young kids, teenagers, high school kids, trying to put this thing back together so we don't get in trouble. It didn't happen. The paddle came out. Dan Kirkland, Mike Harrelson. Boom. Everybody got in line. You took yours and you went on. That was part of it back in the day. Nowadays, that wouldn't fly. But back in the day, the paddle came out. Sliding the golf cart behind the cart barn. Turning the hose on, or the spigot on, getting it muddy, sliding carts, having a blast, thinking we're cool. And then somebody takes out the water spigot. Guilty. Try answering for that one when your daddy's a pro. But the one thing I will tell you, there's a lot of things that have happened in my life, and I've been very fortunate. I've won all over the world, and I've won all over this country. But the biggest thrill in my life was in 1987. I had survived open heart surgery at the age of 22 with an artificial valve in my heart. I've had the same valve for 33 years. I've been on Coumadin for 33 years. I won the Azalea Amateur in Charleston thanks to Frank Ford getting me in just 6 months after surgery. But later that summer, I won the second biggest amateur tournament in this country, the Western Amateur. The reason that is, my father won the Western Open in 1970, as you've all heard and you all know. As Phil said in that video, we are the only father-son combination that one has won the Western Open and one has won the Western Amateur. That is a record or an honor that will never be touched. It'll never be matched, simply because the Western Open is not played anymore. But every day that I leave my house, I get to look in our dining room, and on this shelf are these two medals encased in glass, one from the 1970 Western Open and one from the 1987 Western Amateur. And that is something that I hold very, very dear to my heart. Because honestly, to do something and to be able to share something with my father is the greatest honor of my life. The funny part about it is, I wish he was still here to see this, because the first thing that I would get from my father, just like when I walked off the 18th green to the Southeastern Amateur when I set the tournament record, breaking Alan Dole's record by 11 shots. If you hadn't screwed up on 14 today, that'd have been a hell of a golf tournament. Not congratulations. It was never good enough. Well, when I got into the Columbus State Hall of Fame, I got into it before my dad. So I had a chance to give it back to him. Well, guess what would happen with this one? He would say the same thing about getting into the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame. You're late. I would like to thank you all very much for this honor. You don't realize how important something like this is in your life, coming from your peers, your hometown, until it happens. I never really thought I'd get in this Hall of Fame. I'd kind of given up on it, to be perfectly honest. And luckily, Steve Travis took it as his mission to make sure I got in here. And I really do appreciate it, because this is an honor that I will hold very close to my heart. My wife and I came up with a saying, and I'd like for everyone in here, especially you youngsters sitting in here. If you want to win, protect your skin. God bless you, and thank you very much.
Congratulations, Hugh Royer and the Royer family as well. Our next inductee is head basketball coach at Alabama State University. His team won the Southwest Athletic Conference basketball season tournament championship, participating in the NCAA National Basketball Tournament for the first time in school history. He coached 3 different teams in the NCAA Basketball National Division I tournament: Alabama State University 2001 and 2004, and Southern University in 2006. His 2006 Southern University team was voted the Historic Black Colleges and Universities National Basketball Champions. As head basketball coach at the University of Montevallo and Alabama State University, over 92% of all basketball players graduated. While head basketball coach at the University of Montevallo, he was selected as assistant coach of the South basketball team for the 1994 Olympic Sports Festival in St. Louis, Missouri, in which the South team won the gold medal. As a player and head basketball coach at Ashland University, he played on the 1970-71 teams, third-ranked team in the country with a record of 25 wins and 3 losses, the best win-loss percentage in school history. He was head basketball coach for the 1995-96 basketball season, accomplishing a winning season in his first year, the first winning season in 5 years. Please direct your attention to the screen.
Rob Spivery has a reputation for excellence both on the basketball court and on the sidelines as a coach. The South Girard High School graduate played college ball for Ashland University in Ohio in the early 70s. He would return to Ashland as their head coach in 1995, leading them to their first winning season in 4 years. Rob's first head coaching job, though, was 10 years earlier when he was hired by Montevallo. He guided the Falcons for a decade. His 1989 edition finished with an impressive 23-5 record. They were ranked 10th nationally. In the early 90s, Spivery's teams posted 3 consecutive 20-win seasons. During his tenure with the Falcons, 92% of his student athletes graduated, and he produced 6 All-Americans. In 1994, Spivery was selected as an assistant coach of the South Squad in the Olympic Sports Festival in St. Louis. His team won the gold medal. In 1996, Rob was tabbed as the new head basketball coach for Alabama State University. In the 2000-2001 campaign, he led the Hornets to their first Southwest Atlantic Conference regular season title and conference tournament championship. They also made their first ever appearance in the NCAA tournament. Rob was honored as the Conference Coach of the Year. In 2005, Southern University came calling, hiring Spivery to head up their basketball program. In his first year, he led them to the Southwest Atlantic Conference regular season title. They also captured the conference tournament championship. That would qualify the Jaguars for a spot in the NCAA tournament for the first time since 1993. Spivery's team faced number 1 seeded Duke in the first round in Greensboro, North Carolina. The Jaguars made a strong showing. 4 minutes into the second half, they only trailed by 3. Duke didn't manage a double-digit lead until the 12-minute mark in the game. For his team's efforts that season, Spivery was named the Southwest Athletic Conference Coach of the Year. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is proud to induct Rob Spivery.
Ladies and gentlemen, 2020 Hall of Fame inductee, Rob Spivery. Congratulations. Take a look at the camera. I'll put this on the table.
Good evening. I'm going to say 3 words, and I'd like for you to say 3 words in response to what I say. I think most of you in here know the response. Ain't God good? All the time. God is good. Thank you. I want to thank Jim, you and the committee here at the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame for this great honor, for recognizing not only me. When you recognize me, you recognize so many other people who are associated with me, so thank you. I want to thank Coach James Patrick for his nomination for this great honor, and I'm going to say more about him a little bit later. Also want to thank the honorees here tonight, the inductees, Hugh, George, Jim, and Mr. Latham. Congratulations to you all, and I know that you, from the previous inductees' speech, they appreciate this honor very much, and so do I. As a little boy growing up in Phoenix City, Alabama, across the river, never did I imagine leaving Phoenix City and coming back to this area for such an honor. So I am really appreciative of what you're doing here tonight. The great honor that you bestowed on me. Again, you're not only honoring me, but you're honoring those who have had so much support and so much help in my regards. Thank you very much. At this time, if you don't mind, if you permit me, I'd like to introduce my family. And I have so many other people here that I certainly want to introduce. And you know, before this started, Jim, when you sent us the instructions of limiting our speech to 10 minutes, I said to myself at that time, good luck with that. And you know, I was thinking that with the other honorees on the dais here, that if they did not take their full allotted time, that I might be able to steal some of that time. But I can see now, I think they might have cut into my time a little bit. So you have to forgive me if I prolong this just a little bit longer, okay? Let me introduce my family. Table number 4 here, my wife, Eva, would you please stand, honey? I want all of you to stand. My daughters, Taylor and her family, and Sydney, you all stand, please. And my stepdaughter, Jessica, and her guests, please stand and remain standing. I appreciate them being here. I have a cousin out there, Terrell Long, please stand, Terrell. And Vicky Long, please stand. Thank you all. We traveled a long way to get here. I was living quite closely to Columbus in Phoenix City recently when I was coaching at Alabama State in Montgomery. And at University of Montevallo, which is about 30 minutes south of Birmingham there, so I could get back quite often. I can't do that anymore. We have since moved to El Paso, Texas. After retirement from coaching, and my last job was, I spent 5.5 years as the Director of Parks and Recreation for the city of Montgomery. So since retiring back in March of last year, we've moved to El Paso, Texas. So it is great to be here. It is great to see all of you here. Thank you for coming. For those who have came to support me and the other inductees, or those who just here supporting what has become a great Hall of Fame. Thank you all for being here. I have some former players here tonight. I'd like for them to stand. They played for me at the University of Montevallo. You guys stand, Barbara Joe and Anthony Lawrence and Terrell. I have a former assistant coach, Joe Proctor. Would you stand, please? When I got the job at Alabama State University, Joe Proctor was the first guy I called to add to my staff because we had bumped head in recruiting. He was the assistant coach at Drake University and at Baylor University. Baylor University is the #1 basketball team in the country right now. He was the first guy that I called to join my staff because if he could recruit some of those guys that he recruited at Drake and at Baylor, I knew he could bring some great players to Alabama State. So thank you, Joe. What we are celebrating here tonight, you're very much a big part of it. Thank you. And since I don't get back this way very often, I don't see many people that I grew up with and so on. If there's any alumni, any graduates, anybody from South Girard High School, would you please stand? Thank you for being here. Anyone from Alabama State, whether you're alum or live in Montgomery, please stand. Thank you for being here. Anyone from the University of Montevallo? Of course, the former players, they're here. And I don't imagine someone here is from Southern University, but if you're here, please stand. Thank you. You know, when I left Phoenix City in 1968, I had no idea that I would be returning for something such as this. And I am so honored here tonight. You know, my youngest daughter, Sydney, over here, a few weeks ago, she sent me a text. And in that text, she asked me, said, "Dad, do you know who Paul Harvey is?" And I imagine for those who are 50 years or over, you know who Paul Harvey is. And so I said, well, why don't you Google him and look Paul Harvey up and see what you find out. And so she did. She Googled him and she texted me back and she said, yeah, he was a radio personality. And he will always say at the end of his show, now you know the rest of the story. Well, tonight I'm going to give you the rest of the Rob Spivery story. As a young boy growing up in Phoenix City, I got to play basketball with the help of a person that many of you in this room might know. He got me started in the 3rd and 4th grade at South Girard Elementary School playing basketball because I was probably the tallest guy in my class. That is Clifford Rutledge. Clifford, I believe, is a member of this Hall of Fame and still a big radio personality here in the area. Still has his radio show. Well, he got me started playing basketball, and he is one of the very few people that I know that also knew my mother. See, my mother grew up in Phoenix City, but she died in a car accident when I was 2.5 years old, so I never got to really know my mother, and he's one of the few people that I run into that said he knew my mother, and because my mother was tall, he knew that I was going to be tall, so he got me started in basketball. And he passed me along to a young man named James Patrick. Coach Patrick, would you stand, please? And I want you to remain standing for a few minutes so I can embarrass you a little bit. You know, because of this man, you're not going to sit? Keep standing. I am directly here because of that man was directly responsible for my basketball career. When I graduated from South Girard High School, not knowing where that would take me to, Coach Patrick got on the phone and called a man named Dave Sissom, who was the basketball coach at Grandview Community College in Des Moines, Iowa. And he arranged for me and another teammate of mine, Tommy Chambers, to go to Grandview Junior College on a basketball scholarship. And that's where I ended up. And from there, I went to other places. But because of you, Coach Patrick, and just a phone call and your leadership, when I left South Girard High School, I knew what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a basketball coach. Now, I didn't know I would ascend to the level in which I did, but I just wanted to coach basketball. And because of your help and your direction and your leadership and the way you treated us and coached us, when we were just young boys at South Girard High School, I aspired to be a basketball coach. And because of your help, I'm standing here before you today. Thank you. Thank you. I cannot thank you enough. And I know it was your recommendation that got me in front of this committee. And I certainly want to thank the committee for accepting me as an inductee. Now, the rest of the story. Upon leaving Phoenix City, Thomas Chambers, an ex-teammate of mine, we jumped on a Delta airline from here in Columbus Airport and flew to Des Moines, Iowa, not knowing or not expecting anything. But you know, with the teachers that we had at South Girard High School, when I left South Girard, I felt that I was prepared to go anywhere and to do pretty much anything. It was because of their teaching and their guidance, and still that confidence in us. And from Grandview, we went to Ashland University, And at Ashland University, not knowing anyone, growing up in Phoenix City, I had none of my people ever saw me play basketball. When I say my people, I'm talking about my family. I had a very small family. I never had a sister, never had a brother. My mom was killed in a car accident when I was 2 years old. Never knew my dad, don't know him to this day. So I had a small family. It was just my grandmother who would get up in the morning, leave me in bed, and she would go do domestic work and make about $3 a day and come back home when it was dark. Sometimes she would leave me in that bed and expect for me to go to school, and sometimes I didn't go. Sometimes I just stayed out all day long. And for those of you who knew South Girard at the time, the school was so overcrowded that we had two sections. One session went from morning, 8 o'clock to noon. The other session went from noon until 4 in the afternoon. Well, I was in that morning section, and all of my friends were in the afternoon session. So what do you think I did? When they were on their way to school, I kind of stayed away. I played hooky. And as a result of that, I had to repeat the 8th grade. And in the 8th grade, that's when they built the new school at South Girard High School because it was segregated at the time. And they consolidated both schools in Phoenix City in 1970. Well, I graduated from South Girard in 1968. 2 years later, they consolidated both South Girard and Central High School as you know it today. South Girard now is a middle school. But I just want to share with you tonight, growing up in that small town across the river, not knowing what the future might hold for me as a young black man growing up in a segregated area, when I left, I felt I was prepared. And when I got to Ashland College at the time, it's Ashland University now, I met a family there that took me in as their own, the Jones family. And I met a young boy in that family. He was the oldest sibling in that family, Warren Jones. Warren Jones and I became friends. He was in high school. How we met, I have no idea. But as a black family in a mostly white city, they took me in and made me part of their family. And here it is now, 50 years later, we are just like brothers. Warren, please stand. Now, Warren, I want you to continue to stand because Mr. Latham here knows Warren as well through the USA softball. This man has been all the way around the world. The one you standing up, you're looking at there. He is the past president of USA softball. He is responsible in charge of the USA softball Olympic team. And he and Mr. Latham here have known each other for many, many years through softball and through sports in general. It makes this a small, small world. Warren, thank you. I love you. And if you would just allow me a few more minutes. You know, upon graduating from Ashland, the reason I chose Ashland over some other schools that were recruiting me at the time, and this was 1970, it was because I had an uncle in Cleveland, Ohio, which was only an hour an hour north of Ashland. And because no one had seen me and my family play basketball through high school and through up until that time in college, I selected Ashland College over the University of Hawaii and Abilene Christians and some other school because I wanted someone from my family to see me play. And my uncle, Bill Spivery, who some of you might not know him, but you might know some of his work. He was a gospel singer and songwriter. And if you remember and you heard of the record that was performed by the Manhattan Transfer called Operator, Operator, Give Me Jesus on the Line, he was the writer and author of that record, and many, many more. And I wanted someone to see me play. And so when I got to Ashland to play basketball, I was there for 2 years. Don't you know that man did not miss a game? Home games, road games, he followed us. From Ashland to Brazil, I had a chance to play 2 years of professional ball in Brazil. And from there, then I got into coaching. I was the player, coach. And I said, if I'm going to coach, I need to get back to the States because that's where basketball is basketball. And I ended up being a coach, assistant coach for a young man by the name of Nolan Richardson. I don't mean to drop names, but if you know basketball, you know who Coach Nolan Richardson is. I got to be his assistant coach at the University of Tulsa. And at Tulsa, Nolan Richardson won the NIT National Championship. Before he got to Tulsa, he won the National Junior College National Championship. And after he left Tulsa, he went to Arkansas University and won the NCAA National Championship, making him the only basketball coach in college history to win a Junior College National Championship, a NIT National Championship, and the NCAA National Championship. To show you how small of a world this is, the year of 1966. Now, it might not mean much to you, but to Coach Patrick and to Eugene White and all of those people at South Girard High School, 1966 was the year that South Girard won the state championship in the state of Alabama. 1966 was the same year that a young coach by the name of Don Haskin coached Texas Western College in El Paso, Texas, to a national basketball championship, beating Kentucky in the National Basketball Championship in Maryland. So now there's a connection between 1966, between South Girard High School and Texas Western, because Texas Western started 5 black players. That is the initiation of integration of basketball in the NCAA. So now that's a great connection there. To show you again, to illustrate how small of a world we actually live in, Nolan Richardson was the very first black player at Texas Western College, being from El Paso, Texas. He was the very first. He did not play on that team. He just had finished about 2 years prior to that. You know, when I coached, I never let my players curse in practice or in games. And when Nolan went to Arkansas to become the head basketball coach at Arkansas, I went to the University of Montevallo, my very first head coaching position. And while at practice, I would hear players, when they get upset, they would curse. And I pulled them all together, and I said, look, now, when you feel the urge to curse and you feel that coming up on you, don't do that. Don't say those things. Just look up to the sky, raise your hand, and say, hallelujah. Say hallelujah. So we went back to practice, and all of a sudden, during practice time, I hear some hallelujahs out there. I didn't hear those bad words anymore. So I was, hallelujah. I say, amen. Well, that reminds me of a story that I heard Coach Richardson tell one day. And as he told this story, and some of you, maybe many of you can relate to it, particularly us older ones. He told the story of the little red wagon. And there was this little boy. He used to go around the neighborhood and collect drink bottles. And you know that we used to do that as kids. We'd go collect bottles and we'd turn them in for a 5-cent deposit, whatever that would bring us in terms of a little change. So this little boy, he had his little red wagon, and he would collect all of the drink bottles in the neighborhood, and he would take them to the local store to get a little change in return. So as he would pull his little red wagon down the street, all of a sudden, he had a weak wheel on that thing, and the wheel would pop off. And when that wheel pops off, some of the drink bottles would fall on the ground and break up. So he would just curse up a storm. So he would collect and salvage as many bottles as he could, and he'd put that old wheel back on that wagon, he'll proceed. Well, the next time here would come, approaching him was a minister. And as he got close to that minister, man, that wheel popped off again, and the bottles fell on the ground, and they began to break, and he would curse up a storm. And as he went to pick up those bottles that was left and put it back on that wagon, the old minister said, son, now don't you know saying those bad words was going to get you sent straight to hell? He said, the next time that you want to curse and something like that happens, just say hallelujah. Say hallelujah. So the little boy was mannerable and nice, and he said, yes, sir. So he salvaged what he could out of those bottles, and he put that old wheel back on the wagon, and he proceeded on down the road. Well, when they got a little distance between him and the minister, that old wheel popped off again. Those bottles began to break, and that young boy, instead of cursing, said, hallelujah. And upon hearing this, the old minister heard some noise. And after the boy said hallelujah, he just heard some dingling and noise, and he looked around, and boy, miraculously, it was a miracle. Those bottles that had fallen was all of a sudden flying in the air, placing themselves back together, placing themselves gently down in that wagon. That old wheel that had popped off, it was just floating back in the air and placed itself on that wagon. And upon seeing this, old minister said, damn. It's amazing what a hallelujah could do for you. Again, I want to thank you, Jim. Thank you all for being here tonight. Congratulations to the other inductees. It's an honor to be going in with you, and also an honor going in behind those who have already been inducted in this great Hall of Fame. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations, Rob Spivery, and the Spivery family as well. Our next inductee in 1954 was a Ledger and Choir Back of the Year. In 1954, he was first team, all by city, all region, all state, and was chosen for the South All-Star team in 1956. He was academic All-SEC with the University of Georgia Bulldogs. In 1956, he was the University of Georgia scoring kickoff return leader, and in 1960, he was the Fort Benning Doughboys co-captain and led the team in scoring and rushing. Please direct your attention to the screen.
From Columbus High to Between the Hedges to Fort Benning, at every stop, George Whitton left an indelible mark. As a running back for the Columbus Blue Devils, George racked up a trophy case full of honors. His senior year, he was named Bi-City Back of the Year, and it's no wonder. Whitton rushed for 216 yards against R.E. Lee that year, setting the region record. His gridiron exploits earned him first-team honors on All Bi-City, All Region, All State, and on the All South squad. George was no one-sport wonder either. His senior year, he was captain of the Columbus High baseball team, and he also ran track. He went on to sign a football scholarship with the University of Georgia. He played on the Bulldogs freshman team in 1955. The following year, he earned the starting job at left halfback on the varsity. That season, Whitton led the team in scoring and kickoff returns and finished third in rushing. His junior year, George suffered an injury that sidelined him for most of the season, but he came back to play both offense and defense for the Bulldogs his senior year. Another point of pride for Whitton, he made first team on the All-SEC Scholastic team. George not only concentrated on football and academics at Georgia, he also excelled in ROTC. Upon graduation, he was honored as a distinguished military graduate and awarded a regular Army commission. He continued to play football in the Army at Fort Benning. He was co-captain of his Doughboy squad and led the team in scoring and rushing. During his retirement years, he has been duly honored at his alma mater. In 2007, he was asked to come back to Athens to serve as honorary team captain for the Bulldogs game against Western Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame is proud to induct George Whitton.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hall of Fame 2020 inductee, George Whitton.
You know, I haven't looked at a crowd like this since the first day I think I reported to Coach Butts at Georgia and took a look at the football team and thought I'd driven to the wrong place there. There were so many of them. But I tell you what, it was a great time, and I'm just thrilled to have this opportunity to talk to y'all. I would, first of all, I'd like to introduce my family table, and if y'all wouldn't mind standing up when I called. I have my wife Beth, my son Chip and his wife Meredith, my daughter Becky, and three grandchildren, Meg, Tucker, and Carter, and a good family friend also, Beth Cunningham, that's there today. Those are nice folks. I tell you what, I've had a good time with them, sure enough. You know, the honor that you bestow on me is very well received. And also, I feel honored to have you here. Some of you have driven a long way. And so I'm pleased with that. I haven't seen them yet. I think I have some buddies here, friends that have come up from Louisiana. One of whom happened to be a tackle on the Fort Benning team, and I hope he's here. I haven't seen him yet, but I tell you what, he's a fine fellow. He was a co-captain at LSU back when I was at Georgia. I also see in the audience my former roommate, Cicero Lucas, who was a mighty fine player at Georgia, and also led me to be one of the better duck hunters in Athens there, I think, during those years. Now, I don't think we got credit for that, but it was fun anyway. Here, it's, you know, we're here to honor some folks. I feel really privileged and very fortunate to be one of them. And I think we owe the credit to a lot of people, a lot of different circumstances. And I think back, probably the greatest support I think I ever had was from my mother. I was unfortunate. My dad died pretty early in my lifetime, and so he probably never got to see me at all. I don't think ever playing any sports that I can think of. But my mother became the sports advocate. Now, quite honestly, she didn't know anything about football. The only thing she knew about football was when someone scored a touchdown, everybody jumped up and down and started clapping the hands. And that was her extent of, football knowledge. But she did have an interesting experience one time when we were playing ball at LaGrange. And LaGrange had a very good football team during those days. And I've got people out here that remember some of those games against LaGrange. But in any event, I was fortunate enough to run a kickback for a score. And everybody was yelling and jumping up and down. And my mother, of course, knew something big had happened, but wasn't sure. But there were two gentlemen sitting behind her, both LaGrange fans there. And one of the guys, my mother overheard him. He said, "Gosh, if I knew who that kid was, I'd give him a $10 bill." And with that, he reached in his pocket and he was pulling out a $10 bill. And my mother turned around and said, "That's my son." And he said, "Well, give him this $10 bill." Well, just as she reached back and put her hands on it, the fellow sitting next to him said, wait a minute, there's a penalty. They're calling that play back." With that, he grabbed the $10 bill, put it back in his billfold. And to the best of my knowledge, that's as close as I ever came to being a professional football player. But anyway, there were, along the way, life was full of some ups and downs, as we probably have all found out. And I had one experience that maybe wasn't as bad as that loss of that $10 bill, but I was at Whitton Grammar School. And in our neighborhood, which was over in the Whitton area around Lockwood and Brown Avenue, we played marbles. And it turned out I thought I was a pretty good marble player because we played for keeps, and I was putting marbles in a box there and racking them up. So I was real excited. And they had a marble tournament at Whitton Grammar School. And I thought, gee, I believe I could win that. And we got into it, and sure enough, as the thing progressed like that, when it all ended, I found out I did not win. I was in second place. But the guy that won, I was in the 6th grade. The fellow that won was in the 7th grade. And after I overcame all my excitement and, anguish over not winning, I thought, in the 7th grade, he'll be gone next year, and I'll be in the 7th grade, and I can win this tournament. And I thought that was when the 6th and 7th grade, was still in the grammar school. So sure enough there, after, about the middle of the summer, whenever it was, we were notified that the 7th grade was moving to Columbus High School. And there I was standing left in the cold there. My one chance to win the marble tournament, and it no longer existed. But as fate would have it, when I did get to Columbus High School, sure enough, what did they have? They had 7th and 8th grade football teams. And not only that, in those days I didn't have all the equipment and uniforms, but anyway, they supplied the shoulder pads and pants and jerseys and helmet, and we had a regular schedule. So in the 7th grade, I was there to play football, and that was a great step. In fact, it turned out I enjoyed football a lot more than I did shooting marbles. And so there we were off and running there. But with that came probably the most important thing. We had some good coaches there. It started off in the 7th grade. We had a lot of assistants. Finally, as we moved on up in high school, there. Dickie Butler was there to, as the head coach and all. And Dickie Butler's in this Hall of Fame group based on his experiences as a coach and all. And Herman Dollar was a backfield coach and turned out to be a very good friend, a great friend, and the baseball coach, which I enjoyed as well. And Jim Burns, the lineman. Anyway, it was a good time, and we had some pretty good, high school teams there during that period of time. But the most important thing about it was that the way it turned out, I played well enough to earn a full scholarship to Georgia. And that to me was just a great experience, because I looked at the possibility, and no discredit here, but of going right into the service there as a private, and at Fort Benning. And without that, I said earlier, my dad had died, and my mother had her own shop in the backyard and back area, and did upholstery work and draperies and all like that. But we obviously didn't have the money in those days to support, an opportunity of going to college without something like a scholarship. But sure enough, I was awarded the scholarship and was excited over that, and also to play football. But when I got to Georgia, I tell you what, I ran into a tornado there. Coach Wally Butts was a heck of a coach, and he was tough, I'm telling you. No question about that. But what I found out later was that what he was doing to me, I guess indirectly, was preparing me for later life. Some of the problems that I ran into, the difficulties, and in particular, some experiences that I had as a soldier. And so that was something there that was a secondary effect. But I tell you what, it was a big help to me and all. So all of that was a wonderful experience. We had some tough times there, with playing ball at Georgia at that time. We didn't have the top teams that they've had in the last couple of years, but it was we played some good games and always had a fierce rivalry with Georgia Tech. And again, with Georgia Tech, we learned to really, I guess you would say, despise Georgia Tech. I've got some good friends out here, but that was the name of the game back then. But I've got another story about Tech that'll develop here in just a second. But on one time, something came up about how hard was it at Georgia. And I was talking to Lauren Smith, who writes for the Athens paper and is a sports writer, writes a lot for the Atlanta paper and all. But anyway, Lauren had me one day quizzing me about some stuff, and he said, look, I believe didn't you go to the infantry school at Fort Benning? That was kind of tough, wasn't it? And I said it was. And he said, didn't you go to airborne training there? And I said, I did that. And that was also had its own bit of toughness involved there. And he said, how about, didn't you go to jump master school up at Fort Bragg? And I said, yeah, I did that and managed to get out of that. And he said, I thought didn't you also go to special forces training? And I said, I did. Well, all three of those, he said, which one was the toughest to go through? And I said, well, without any hesitation, I said, the toughest thing that I ever had to do was a spring practice under Coach Wally Butts. And no discredit to any of the airborne folks that are here and all like that. But let me tell you what, Coach Butts was one of a kind there. He really was. But again, it was a good experience for me. It really was. It's really a wonderful honor here. I know that Jim White has got a real fine organization, and they do a good job. The way it's put on is really something. I was here last year when one of my high school coaches, Dickie Butler, was inducted, and I was very, very impressed by that. But you know, actually from UGA, my next, I guess my next phase of business was to join the Army. I mean, to go into the Army. As an ROTC graduate, I certainly had a commitment to go, and I was looking forward to it. I know today sometimes not everybody thinks in those terms, but I was real pleased and with my experiences, and I thought I learned a lot. And in the audience here is my son, who also spent 3 years with the 101st Airborne there. And one of the nicest things he ever said to me one time was that he called up and he was telling me that he thought I was a pretty tough old guy to deal with, you know, when he was growing up. But he said, let me tell you something, Sergeant so-and-so up there would eat you alive and spit you out. And I know he didn't really mean it like that, but of course, but that was, again, the experience sometimes that the service will, you know, offer you. And I do see some tables out here with a couple of these guys, and I spent some time with Special Forces training, and these are quality people. I really think highly of them and would call on them in a second, and I think they feel like they could call on me at any time, and I would respond. It's a sense of ownership, a friendship, or whatever you want to call it, that developed when you're in that kind of situation. Now, we have in the audience a number of Georgia lettermen, and folks, some of them I played with at Georgia, some, of course, in high school, and I tell you, it was, all in all, was a very good experience. And I also had an opportunity, of course, to play service ball, and I got a call. I was an instructor there with the 23rd Infantry at the time, and came in one day, and the battle group commander said the post commander wants to see you. And I thought, oh my gosh. And in those days, life is a little different now, but I thought maybe my wife had written a bad check, because that was about the one thing that you'd be hung for, criminally attacked there. But anyway, I went up to see the battle group commander, and he set me down, and he said, Whitton, he said, the post commander wants to see you right away about playing football for Fort Benning. And I said, sir, I haven't played football in 2 years. He said, I didn't ask that. He said, the post commander wants to see you. This is his office. Get over there and see him. So anyway, I went to this group, you know, and we met at the stadium and all. And the general comes down there, post commander, goes down the line, and of course we had name tags on and all, and came down and he looked at my name tag and he said, Whitton. He said, you will be one of my backs. And I said, sir, I have not, played football in 2 years. And of course everybody was always taller than me. That was one of my headaches. But anyway, he was taller. And with that, after I said that, he leaned forward and put his hands on my shoulders and looked me right in the eye and said, Whitton, you will be one of my halfbacks. Well, all I could see were the stars on his collar there, you know. And I stepped back and saluted him, and I said, yes, sir, I can't wait. But it turned out to be, really a great amount of fun there. We had a good time. The football was not quite as stringent. We had some interesting experiences there. One of them one time was that they cut, it was a hot August day, and he said, we need to take a break, and they cut the sprinkler system on and told everybody to go down there and get in the sprinkler system and get some water and loosen up. And my friend Cicero Lucas will understand this, but the crowd ran off and jumped in the sprinkler system and, was running all around like some 7-year-old kids cooling off. And I was just standing there with my arms folded. And the coach came over there and said, not a nice word, but he said, implied that I needed to go over there and cool off. And without thinking, I looked around, I said, I couldn't do that. Coach Butts would kill me if he thought that. But that was the difference in the, the training schedule and all like that. And another thing I found out, and what I enjoyed about service football, was that our quarterback was a guy named Fred Brazelton. Well, Fred had played, he was a quarterback that I'd played against, and he was from Georgia Tech. Well, I told you earlier how we felt about Georgia Tech. I didn't know whether to call the police or, go to practice there since Brazelton was going to be the quarterback. But, I found out he was a good quarterback, and he was a nice guy, and I have a different feeling about Georgia Tech than I used to after playing with Fred Brazelton. But nice fellow there and all. Well, I do want to thank you all for coming. It's been a real privilege for me, and I'm trying to think. I want to be sure that Jim White knows how much our family appreciated that, and if there's anything we can do to help the program in the years, and we'd be glad to do it. And I thank everybody here. I'm glad to meet these fine fellows, and especially some of these old Georgia players, and they're out there scattered among you there. Is Letterman there? But anyway, that about covers it for me. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. Congratulations, George Whitton and the Whitton family as well. Folks, just let me share just a thought or two with you before you leave. We believe there's at least one graphic measure by which we distinguish the great men and women of the Chattahoochee Valley, and we believe that to be the Chattahoochee Valley Sports Hall of Fame. While it's physically located at the Civic Center, perhaps more importantly, it's located within our hearts. We have 129 inductees in the Hall of Fame. Tonight, we added 8 more. We received them in large part because they are visionaries of perfection. They acted nobly, they acted with purpose of mind and purpose of body. Before we adjourn, I believe that it's very appropriate that we please stand and give one final round of applause to the class of 2020. Good night, everyone.